Someone was in the house with her. An intruder. Still hugging the blanket to her, she stealthily tiptoed outside the room and stood on the landing. Staring down into the darkness, she stood there for 5 minutes, breathing heavily, and wondering if she should grab a weapon of some kind. Her apartment in San Francisco had never been broken into, mainly because thieves wouldn't have found much they cared about. Back then she'd been mugged once by a junkie in a small alley off Mission Street. But she'd taken that in her stride as the cost of living in a big city. Swaddle was supposed to be safe, a small town covered in bubble wrap, where kids still walked to school alone and neighbors left doors swinging open in the daytime. The last thing she'd expected was burglars. Well, in any case, if the house had been broken into, the sensible thing to do was to call the police and hide in her room until they came. She was about to turn back when something inside her protested. No. She'd already let her fiancé chase her away from San Francisco. She wasn't going to let anything, real or imagined, bully her inside her new home. She took a deep breath and let her blanket fall to the floor. Grabbing a small IKEA stool from her room, she cautiously tiptoed downstairs. She probably looked crazy, with her bedhead, pink and blue pajamas, and a stool for a weapon. Despite herself, a grin formed on Rachel's face. No doubt she'd be back in bed in 5 minutes, and laughing at herself for being such a fool in the morning. Her Aunt Rose's house stood on the edge of Main Street, the small strip of downtown that Swaddle proudly showed off. It was a 2-story, red brick structure, with living quarters upstairs and a small bakery downstairs. The stairs led down to a passage with her aunt's small study on one side and the kitchen on the other. Directly in front of her was the counter, behind which were 2 small tables standing in front of a picture window. Streetlights shone in, casting weird shadows on the walls. Rachel shivered. The front door was closed, and there was not a soul in sight. The kitchen was empty, too. Rachel's heart gave a little gallop, though, as she noticed that the back door in the kitchen was very slightly ajar. Then she heard it again, this time a scraping sound from inside the study. Her hand shook slightly as she paused by the study door. Someone was inside. Not letting herself think, Rachel pushed open the door and stepped in, brandishing the stool and screaming at the top of her voice. "Free, sucker! I got you! I got you!" She was met by an answering scream, thin and shrill, and a figure in black, cowering behind her aunt's desk. Sliding her hand on the wall, Rachel flipped on the lights. "You?" She dropped the stool and stared. Emily Frank, dressed in dark jeans and a black turtleneck, had her hands up in front of her face and was doubled over behind the desk. Rachel's eyes swept around the desk and immediately noted the messed-up papers in the open drawers. Anger pulsed through her. Emily Frank owned the cafe opposite the bakery, and she hadn't exactly been enthusiastic about Rachel moving into her aunt's house. But Rachel hadn't imagined her displeasure would carry over into whatever this was. "I can explain," Emily said, straightening up. "You will," Rachel replied. "Explain to the police, that is. Last I checked, breaking and entering is a felony." Not that Emily looked like anybody's idea of a thief. Even now, with her hair up in a messy bun and no makeup, Emily was nothing short of gorgeous. Her green eyes perfectly matched her sun-streaked blonde hair, and her doe-like neck would have made Audrey Hepburn jealous. Worst of all was her face. Emily's perfect, gorgeous face, with its sharp nose and thin mouth, and "I'm superior" expression. The only flaw you could really find in Emily, if you looked hard, was in her ears, which stuck out at 45-degree angles from her face, looking rather like cabbages in full bloom. "There's no need to call the police, really," Emily said. "Let's just talk it out ourselves, okay?" Rachel sneered and turned away. In the last year, she'd been cheated out of her own business by arrogant, perfect people like Emily. As a consequence, Rachel had developed a special hatred for people who thought that the rules of decency didn't apply to them, simply because they were good-looking and charming. Keeping one eye on Emily, Rachel dialed the police.
to keep listening to this audiobook. I've left you a link in the description so you can do it at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.